Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Wardley. Happy Tuesday to everybody out there. Hope you guys had a great weekend. There was a great Saturday for college football. Just looking back on the scores, I was like, dang, I can't believe I missed that. But, I had some family things that I had to do on Saturday, so I didn't get to watch any of the games. I know LSU and Florida had a great matchup. LSU came out with the upset, surprisingly, because they've had a pretty trash year. I know that the UCLA-USC game was actually really good. There were a few more games that were pretty good, but like I said, I didn't get to watch any of them. I think the only game that I really got to watch was Army-Navy, and I love that game basically because there is no tricks. It's just, hey, we're both going to run the ball as much as we can, and whoever's better wins. It's not like there's any trick plays. It's not like there's really any pass. I think there was a total of 10 passes in the game, if that. Maybe 9. But it's pretty crazy to see that those guys can just pound the ball over and over and over again. And I know to most people it's really low scoring and it's not really that exciting of a game, but I was pretty pumped. I was pretty pumped watching that game, and then I had to go help my brother-in-law's parents move a bunch of stuff, and then we went out walking around Plano. In Plano, Texas, there's this really nice area with a bunch of rich people's houses, and we started walking around there staring at Christmas lights, which was kind of funny because I get that COVID's still a thing and all that stuff, and I get that it was cold, but it was probably, I would say, mid-30s to low 40s, which I get to most people is really chilly. And if you're not from the area, you get really cold. But, just throw on a couple jackets. It's really not that bad. Throw on a couple jackets and a beanie and just walk around and enjoy the lights. There were cars backed up for miles on top of miles on top of miles on top of miles trying to get into this place, to the point where we walked around the neighborhood, I would say, for probably around 2 hours staring at Christmas lights, and there were still cars backed up for miles when we came in. We came in around 7:30, 8-ish. We left at around 9:30-ish, and there were still people trying to get in, and I'm bumper to bumper traffic throughout the neighborhood. It kind of seemed how do the people who live here get in and out? How do they get in and out of their neighborhoods when everybody's driving around, bumper to bumper traffic trying to get, trying to see their Christmas lights? It didn't make any sense to me, but it was cool because in college, the past couple of years, if you knew me, there were some unfortunate circumstances that have came up the past couple Christmases that, haven't made Christmas the most fun holiday, even though I do love it the most out of any other holiday. I think Christmas is awesome. The movies are great. I'm a sucker for the music. Everybody's walking around. It's cold. People are relatively happy walking around outside. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a great holiday. But yeah, it's been kind of crappy the past couple of years, and then going out and doing this, it was really exciting. So I would have traded, I trade the good day of football for the typical family Christmas experience. Sunday's football was not that great. My guy Mitch Trubisky, he finally decided to play quarterback, which is kind of funny. I'm actually kind of a Lions fan, even though I do kind of like the Bears too. The Lions are trash as always. I did like seeing Jalen Hurts because I'm a big college football fan, and I did think that Jalen Hurts was the man when he first came in 2016 for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I thought he was cool, so I was pretty pumped on seeing him get to play. Not only getting to play, but getting the win in his first NFL start. So that was pretty cool. And now I have no work for FC Dallas, and just planning on staying on working out twice a day. It's really all the updates for me. Enough about me though. Let's talk about some baseball. So we have a few contracts that came up this weekend. First of all, some big news. It wasn't big in the sense of, the signing was huge. It was just what the signing meant. So the Red Sox announced today that they signed Hunter Renfroe to a 1-year deal. Renfroe got the last open spot on Boston's 40-man roster. The Red Sox did not announce the value of the contract, but MLB insider John Heyman reports that the deal is worth $3.1 million, with potentially $600,000 more in performance incentives. So Hunter Renfroe is not a big deal. Let's just be clear. He's not him signing with the Red Sox is not that breaking of a deal. It's not breaking news. But what is breaking news about him signing is this means that Boston's out on George Springer, which makes it more apparent that Springer's most likely going to the Mets. Mainly because, Renfroe's going to be taking over the spot that they dropped Jackie Bradley Jr. for. So they're going to be pairing him alongside Alex Verdugo and Andrew Benintendi. They're not going to be looking at him to do a DH role because they still have JD Martinez back there. And it's a huge, huge, huge drop-off from George Springer. I feel like if they had the opportunity to get George Springer, they would have went way harder after him. Mainly because, last year Hunter Renfroe did not do very well in Tampa Bay. The Padres traded Renfroe to the Rays in 2019 in a swap for Jake Cronenworth, who I think should have won Rookie of the Year last year, and Tommy Pham. But yeah, he struggled. He had a 77 league adjusted OPS plus in 2020. That's not good. He finished the World Series run in Tampa with a 174 average and a 208 on base percentage across the entire postseason. That's when you have someone who's put together that kind of resume where he's pretty much hot garbage in the postseason, and you have the opportunity to get somebody who's one of the best postseason performers we've ever seen in George Springer. I won't say ever seen, but, definitely the past 5 years, you can't say George Springer is not one of the best players you've seen in the postseason. I mean, this season alone, the Astros woke up with a 1-0 lead because George Springer was going to come up and just knock a tater somewhere. You could count on him to produce runs in any game that you played. So when it comes to something like that, I feel like the only way, if you're Boston, either you are trying to save as much money as possible and you didn't really even push after George Springer, or you knew you weren't getting him, so you just backed out. I can't really think of a team that could find that's trying to compete that is just going to back out on a guy who has that type of playoff resume, especially when they're a team that went after, Pablo Sandoval one year. They went after, who else did they go after? I don't even remember. I can't even remember the names, but they always go after players with big names and resumes. Even with David Price, going after him, getting Chris Sale. Chris Sale hadn't shown out in the postseason ever with the White Sox, and they went out and got him. And it paid off for him. I mean, they won a World Series, but it just makes it seem like they're not even going to try to compete the next couple of years. They're going to just completely gut the team and reevaluate themselves, which is kind of what most them and the Patriots are kind of doing, which is funny because, if there's one place that you would consider to be, title town of the past 20 years, it would most likely be Boston. They have one with the Celtics. They have, 04, 07, and 2012, and 2018, so 4 with the Red Sox. They got 6 with the Patriots. I don't even know how many they got with the Bruins. So they have the upwards of, I would say, 12 championships in 20 years. That's insane. That is absolutely insane that they would have that that level of success in a 20-year period in 4 sports. And, with the Patriots gutting themselves and not figuring out what they're going to do, they're out of the playoffs this year. Boston, they're just not even going to try these next couple of years and just get everybody off the books because they don't like their roster the way it is, and then figure out they might go the minor league route, which kind of build through the minor league system, which hey, I'm not mad at, but hey, we'll see how it goes. Another thing alongside that, alongside those news, the New York Mets, they signed Jared Porter, who is for the general manager's position. He spent the last 4 seasons as Arizona's assistant GM. He spent the last, before that, 16 years alongside Theo Epstein. He was a part of, Boston and Chicago's drought teams. He was in the front office when they got titles in 04, 07, 13, and 16. 3 of the 4 were alongside Theo Epstein. So it looks like the Mets are doing the right thing. They got the new owner who's willing to spend. They got the new GM who has been there, done that. And alongside those news, it looks like they are also out of the JT Realmuto sweepstakes because they went after James McCann and signed him to a 4-year, $40 million contract, which is, I think, good for what he brings to the table. He's 30 years old. He had a pretty good year with the Tigers. They non-tendered him in 2019. He went to the White Sox. He batted .273. He had a .328 on base and a .460 slugging with 18 homers. While with the White Sox the following summer, he made his first All-Star team that season. He followed it up with pretty good offensive numbers over 31 games in 2020. So it looks like Realmuto is not going to be going to the New York Mets, especially without the universal DH being there. If the universal DH was there, you can probably put James McCann at the DH, switch them, so they don't, for less wear and tear on their knees behind the plate. Maybe you can move Pete Alonso there and move one of those catchers to first base, kind of a thing. But, without the universal DH, it looks like they are out on Realmuto, which leads me to believe that there are more teams, there are more teams out there for Realmuto than people think. With him and the Phillies, quote-unquote, going bankrupt because they're out. Apparently they're shopping Bryce Harper now, which doesn't make sense to me. But, if they're shopping Bryce Harper and they're shopping Zach Wheeler, which is hilarious because they just said that they would not trade him even for Babe Ruth, which is a blatant lie. Whenever somebody comes out and says something completely over the top like, oh man, I wouldn't trade him for the greatest player of all time. I'm not saying that Babe Ruth is the greatest player of all time, but, insert whoever you believe is the greatest player to ever play. Oh, I wouldn't even trade him for him. They would definitely trade him for, quarters on the dollar. It's like they always try and go over the top to try and save face, but, it doesn't really work out that way. So, JT Realmuto sweepstakes are starting to heat up, and it looks like the Phillies, since they are quote-unquote going bankrupt, are out, and the Mets are out. I wonder who's going to get Realmuto. He'll probably be signing in the next couple months, so there's definitely going to be more and more news about him until it gets nauseating, because baseball off-seasons are very boring. It is what it is. We haven't found a way to master it. So we'll just wait and see when he turns up. And lastly, when it comes to signings, David Dahl, he will turn 27 on April 1st. He signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Texas Rangers. He's a great player. In 2019, he played 100 games with the Rockies. He batted .302, .353, .524. With 15 homers, 61 RBIs. But that's the thing, he cannot stay healthy to save his life. He always gets hurt. This year he was struggling. He played only 24 games due to injury. He batted 183 at a .222 on base and a .247 slugging percentage. And then he's just been injured. And his home road splits are very, he has a Coors Field bump as well, which kind of hurt his value. Coors Field, he's batting .318, got a .361 on base and a .566 slugging in Colorado. And then on the road, he's batting .248 with a .302 on base percentage and a .420 slugging percentage. So, tough break for David Dahl. I hope he's able to stay healthy. He's still really, really young, and he's a really good hitter. So maybe that, maybe Texas will get a bargain for him, but, we'll see. On a 1-year deal, I don't think it's going to be, that big of a risk. And he doesn't become a free agent, until after the 2023 season. So they have him on arbitration for the next couple years, which could really help out the Texas Rangers. All right, everybody, I'm going to be taking my first break, and I will be right back with some rumors, mainly because it's been pretty dull, and I'm not going to get to the biggest news about the Indians just yet. I'll be getting to that in the third segment, so I'll be right back and just talk about some rumors.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Like I said in the last segment, people, free agency and the downtime in the MLB offseason is super boring. It's just boring. It really is. There really isn't anything that is too fascinating going on. There is no... Even if there is a big sweepstakes, it takes forever, sometimes into the spring training before it gets resolved. There is no... decision. There is no helicopters following a plane around going, oh, he just landed here, like Bryce Harper landed here. It seems like it's all like phone calls and other people going, slyly to them and all that other stuff. So not a ton going on. Really not a ton at all going on. But one rumor that just came out is that the White Sox emerge as Liam Hendriks' primary suitor. So Chicago as a whole to fill a closer since Alex Colome went to free agency. They're really looking to address their bullpen, especially after getting Lance Lynn. They've signed free agent outfielder Adam Eaton, to really get their bullpen or their outfield stacked up. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, Alex Colome, you don't really hear a ton about him. You hear a few things like, he's just like, I don't hear a ton. I really don't hear a ton. He just shows up, does his job, and leave. And Hendriks is like the guy who's the closer on the free agent market. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, let's see how these guys stack up against each other, because I wanted to see, like, is Liam Hendriks that much of an upgrade? And, I pulled up their baseball reference page, for example, and looked at their, just numbers last season and career numbers in general. So let's bring up last season. Last season, Liam Hendriks, 3-1, a 1.78 ERA. In 24 games, he had 14 saves in 25 innings, 37 strikeouts, and a 0.6 whip. Good numbers. He's 31. Nothing too crazy. Then let's go to Alex Colome. He's also 31. 2-0 record, 0.8 ERA. In 21 games, he got 12 saves in 22 innings with 16 Ks and a 0.9 whip. Not too bad. Pretty similar numbers. You're not losing a whole bunch. You're not gaining a whole bunch. Maybe just strikeout wise to make it a little better on your infield, but nothing too over the top. So I'm like, okay, let's bring up their career numbers, because their career numbers probably are going to show the big difference. You know what I'm saying? I looked at when it comes to saves, Liam Hendriks, he has just became a closer the last couple years. So I'm going to go back to around 2015. Back when, the amount of games that he had were a lot more, because 2014 he pitched in 9 games, 2013 10 games, 2012 16 games, and in 2011 he had 4 games. And these are all games started, so he was a starting pitcher going with those. And then he went to the bullpen. He had 58 games, 0 starts, 53 games, 0 starts, all that kind of stuff. They were like, okay, let's figure this out. He definitely is a bullpen pitcher. And when he did that, his ERA went down significantly, so I'm not going to hold that against him, because the career ERAs are massively different, mainly because they tried to throw him in as a starter when he was in Minnesota, because Minnesota has no idea what they were doing. And, it got changed. So let's go with Liam Hendriks. So in 2015, he was 5-0 with a 2.92 ERA. He had, in 58 games, he threw 64 innings and had a total of 71 Ks. Not too bad, not too crazy. Let's see. Let's go down to ERA plus. ERA plus, he had a 4.14 or 1.41. Sorry, 4.14 would be ridiculous, but a 1.41 ERA plus with a 2.14 FIP. Not too bad. Let's go 2015 to Alex Colome. Alex Colome, 2015, 8-5. Let's see. He was still kind of a starter, nothing too crazy. So he was 8-5. He had a 3.94 ERA in 100 innings, in 109 innings. He had 88 strikeouts. He had a 99 ERA plus and a FIP of 3.55. So he didn't really become a starter until he was with the Rays in 2016, which was his first All-Star appearance. So let's go with 2016 and on. Let's go with that. So 2016, Liam Hendriks, age 27, 0-4, 3.76 ERA, 53 games. Let's see, he pitched 64 innings, 64.2 innings, 71 Ks, a 1.09 ERA plus, a FIP of 2.85. So he did pretty well. Let's go to Colome. Colome in 2016. He was an all-star, 2-4 with a 1.91 ERA. He had 37 saves, pitched 56 innings, K'd 71. He had an ERA plus of 2.11 and a FIP of 2.92. Advantage, Alex Colome. Let's go to 2017. 2017, we have Liam Hendriks. He's 4-2 with a 4.22 ERA. He pitched 64 innings. He had 78 Ks, an ERA plus of 9.9, and a FIP of 3.22. Not the best work from him. 2017, you got a 2-3 record, a 3.24 ERA. You got a career high 47 saves in 66 innings pitched, 58 Ks. Go to the advanced stats, 1.30 ERA plus, and a FIP of 3.37. So you got 3.37. You got a 3.22. The ERA plus is much higher, much more saves. Obviously, because he wasn't a closer at the time, but the same amount of innings, I think you're getting a lot better. I would say advantage, Alex Colome. So let's go 2018. 2018. He's still not a closer yet, Liam Hendriks. I think he gets a pass. He only got to play in 25 games because he was injured. So we'll give him a pass on that one. Let's go 2019. 2019 is when he becomes a closer. So 2019, he's 4-4 with a 1.80 ERA in 75 games. He had 25 saves, 85 innings. He had 124 strikeouts in 85 innings. He had a 2.37 ERA plus and a 1.87 FIP. Really, really honed in. He was an all-star that year. 2019 for Alex Colome, you have a 4-5 record, a 2.8 ERA. He had 30 saves, pitched 61 innings, 55 Ks. He had a 1.64 ERA and a 4.08 FIP. So with that, clear advantage, Liam Hendriks. Now let's go to this year. This year, 3-1 record, 1.78 ERA, in 25 innings. He had 14 saves. He had an ERA plus of 2.35 and a FIP of 1.14. You go to Alex Colome of the White Sox, 2-0, 0.81 ERA. He had 12 saves in 22 innings, a 5.58 ERA plus, and a 2.97 FIP. It really is a toss-up. It really, really is a toss-up at this point. Alex Colome in 2020 got a $10.5 million in his salary. Salary for Liam Hendriks, $5.3 million. He got Cy Young Award race. He was 9th in the Cy Young Award race, 13th in the MVP voting. None of those votes came for Alex Colome. So it's up to you guys. Who do you guys believe is the better pitcher out of that? I don't know if Liam Hendriks is a complete upgrade because he's hot. He got hot the past couple years. He was doing his thing. He had 2 really good seasons back-to-back. Alex Colome's had, a more dense resume of being, a top-tier relief pitcher. But he is more expensive at the end of the day. We'll see what goes on there. If I were the White Sox, I would have re-signed Colome. I get that the strikeouts for Liam Hendriks is, very enticing. But, with injury history, and, we've seen pitchers who get really hot for a couple years and go back to being, average. And we've seen it definitely happen with the Oakland Athletics where pitchers are amazing with the A's and then go on to other places and be not as great as they used to be. So we'll see how it goes. Liam Hendriks, that's the real question. Am I just a hater? I don't really know. Let's see. Going on to the latest news. So the Angels are doing great. And you can tell not to pat myself on the back or not to pat my favorite team on the back, but the new GM came from the Braves, as we're all well aware of at this point, and he came out and said that, they're not going to overpay for perceived quote-unquote second-tier free agent starters like Odorizzi, Paxton, and Masahiro Tanaka, because they are going after the big dogs. They're going after Trevor Bauer, and they're in the middle of trade discussions surrounding Blake Snell. So they're going to try and package up Justin Upton, which is incredible. Justin Upton is not good. He has not been good for forever. I can't stress enough how he's not been good. Even when he was good, he really wasn't good. And when people look at me like that, they go, what do you mean? How can he be good and not good? It's because he would get scorching hot in 2 months that had nothing to do with baseball. Like, had nothing to do with the grand scheme of how the season went. He would get insanely hot at the start of the season. He would hit 8 to 10 homers in April, and he would hit 8 to 10 homers in August. Just absolute mammoth shots. And then he would get like 2 to 3 homers a month for the rest of the season, like combined. Each month, get 2 to 3 homers. So he'd end the season around 30 with 100 RBIs, and people would be like, man, this guy's incredible. But it was really just 2 months that didn't really mean anything. And then the big money months where you need to put in a lot of work, he fizzled out and didn't really do anything. And people were like, oh, when you look at the numbers, that's why I always hated the show Numbers Never Lie. Numbers absolutely lied all the time. They lied all the time. So it looks like that the Angels are going to be going after Trevor Bauer, we all are well aware of. And I'll get to more on that in a second. They're not going to overpay for second-tier pitching, which is great because, as every Angels fan is well aware of, ever since they got, Vernon Wells, I think they've overpaid second-tier talent every single time. So, Manasian is doing a great job of, putting a stop to that and really creating a culture within the Los Angeles Angels. Hop on the bandwagon now, people. The Angels will be in the playoffs in the next 2. I would say by 2023, the Angels will be a postseason team, probably before that. Just letting you know. Some more news. Buster Olney reported that Corey Kluber is going to start throwing some bullpen sessions for quote-unquote interested clubs before the end of December. 2-time Cy Young Award winner. He pitched just 1 inning with the Rangers this year before, he got a grade 2 teres major strain. I don't know what that means. But the Red Sox and the Twins are some of the clubs that have expressed interest in Corey Kluber. So we could be seeing him, go back to the AL Central with the Twins. He could be going out east to the Red Sox, which, I think would be a pretty good move for the Red Sox. I feel like you can get Corey Kluber for cheap. Maybe he can squeeze a little bit more of, what he has in him left, whatever's left in him out. Maybe you strike gold in a bottle or lightning in a bottle, What does he have left in him? It may work out for you. Who knows? You may get Tim Wakefield 2.0, but just instead of a knuckleballer, it's a sinker baller. Everybody kind of wrote off Lance Lynn a few years ago, and now he's back looking better than ever and was a part of a blockbuster trade. So, Corey Kluber, if he can get healthy and get right and start locating his sinker again, maybe you got a pretty big guy, big name dude who you can trade to another team for pretty big assets, especially if you're not planning on competing for the postseason, and you're just trying to rebuild through your farm system. You may be able to get someone who has some real trade value, ship them off to a team that, is competing for a World Series and get some prize prospects back and, really be ready for the future. I don't know what their idea is for Xander Bogaerts, but you throw in, if you get a good season at a Bogey, which you most likely will, and then you get, a decent season out of Corey Kluber, you may have some pieces that you're getting ready to trade on. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully Kluber bounces back. He was a fun pitcher to watch. I really like sinker ballers. And then lastly, we'll end on this. So the Trevor Bauer race, it looks like all eyes are pointed to the Mets and the Angels. The Mets and Angels have a staring contest going on right now, and a former MLB general manager said on Sunday on MLB Network Radio that all indications I'm getting from the whispers around baseball is it's going to be the Mets or the Angels, which really makes sense because Trevor Bauer is, from the LA area. He's a psycho. He got his GED so he can go to UCLA early on his scholarship. So he went to UCLA. He's from LA. He's from that area. Like, he's just going home at that point, to launch. And he has his media company and all that kind of stuff. Or he's going to go to the Mets and really hone in on a rivalry with Garrett Cole, his former teammate and apparently bitter rival at UCLA, because they really hate each other. They really, really hate each other. And I'm kind of in on the Mets. I want him to go to the Angels just because that was a team that I grew up rooting for. But I'm kind of in on the Mets and the Yankees becoming a bitter rivalry where you have the two aces who absolutely hate each other, who all they want to do is bash their heads in. I like that kind of stuff. I really want that back in baseball. So I'm kind of rooting for the Mets to pull out this deal, but neither team can go wrong. And if he signs to either team, I'm happy either way because we're going to be getting good baseball out of it, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. All right, everybody, I'm going to be taking a quick break, and I will be right back to talk about the Cleveland Indians name change.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Alrighty, so now we are off to the big news. The pretty, it wasn't, I'm not going to say shocking news, but it did catch everybody off guard. I would think it caught everybody off guard. It just came out of nowhere. I get that there was a lot of backlash over Cheap Wahoo, which I've expressed many times that was my favorite logo in all of sports. I understand why they took it down, so I'm not hating on that, but I'm always going to miss Chief Wahoo, mainly because that's just who I grew up with. Whether it was right or wrong, it's just kind of like that bit of nostalgia where you look at the Cleveland Indians, and with that big part of your life, they were growing up. For me, they were horrible. They were one of the worst teams, but you always kind of played with the Indians because Chief Wahoo, and the really cool jerseys, and then you have Major League and all that kind of stuff where they have the Wahoo on it, and it was sad when they got rid of all that. But
once they got rid of that, I was pretty sure that they were going to keep the Indians for, a lot longer. But news came out last night, I think it was, that, the Cleveland Indians are going to change their name, and by Wednesday we will have a new name for the Cleveland Indians. They're one of the many teams that changed their name from, Indians or Native American, like figures onto something else. The most famously, the Washington football team just did theirs. I think that really sparked it. The North Dakota Fighting Sioux changed their name to the Fighting Hawks, I think it is. So they all changed their names. There are a few more teams that are, based off Native Americans in professional sports. You have the Atlanta Braves, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chicago Blackhawks. All three of those teams have said in recent months that they have no plans on changing their names. Many universities and high schools have abandoned the Native American names and mascots a long time ago, but efforts to address the names at all levels of sport have increased, mainly because of the pandemic and people really don't have anything else that they can do. So might as well go to, inflict change, which I'm not disagreeing with at all. But I feel like the pandemic has really, pushed these movements into maximum overdrive. For Cleveland, it all began, like I said earlier, with, when they announced that it would retire Chief Wahoo. Once again, really sad. And then also, when, the key sponsors of the Washington football team, FedEx, Pepsi, and Nike, all went through and pushed for the football team to change their name. And obviously, they weren't looking at the football team, but there was that guy who went in and bought over 600 team names and, was like, hey, Dan Snyder will sell you whatever name. And he just said no and went with the football team, and they'll figure something out along the way. I like the troll move right there. I thought it was pretty funny, but, it is what it is. Not the best name, but whatever. Cleveland said it would conduct a thorough review of the nickname. They've consulted with many Native American groups in Ohio and nationally, so it looks like team names are up for grabs. So what I did was I looked at a list of teams from, the past related to Cleveland. So just for baseball alone, you have the Cleveland Forest Cities, the Cleveland Spiders, the Cleveland Blues, the Cleveland Infants. You got the Bearcats. You have the Spiders again. The Tate Stars of the Negro Leagues. The Negro League seems like it changed every name, or every season. Because in 22, it was the Tate Stars. In 24, it was the Browns. In 26, it was the Elites. In 27, it was the Hornets. In 28, it was the Tigers. In 31, it was the Cubs. In 32, it was the Stars. In 33, it was the Giants. In 34, it was the Red Sox. In 39 and 40, it was the Bears. And then from the 43 to 48, it was the Buckeyes, and then it also was the Buckeyes again in 1950. So those are the names of the Negro League teams. Nothing too over the top. I don't know if any of them will be, with the name like the Tigers, the Cubs, Giants, Red Sox. I don't know if they'll go after them, especially like the Browns. I really hope that they don't, because those are already names of other teams. That would be terrible. I wouldn't like that. But, and like the Elites, I don't think the Elites really sounds too good. Now the Cleveland Buckeyes sounds not so bad. That doesn't sound terrible, especially since, the Ohio State Buckeyes are a thing. But I think once we got into, the newish eras. Like every team needs their own team name, so I can't see that. And everybody would say Cleveland's naming their baseball team after a college, which is kind of, backwards. The Forest Cities doesn't make any sense. The Infants, God no, that would be horrible. Bearcats, that's Cincinnati's team. No, that would be pretty bad. I don't know what a Tate Star is. The Hornets, no. When I think of Hornets, I don't affiliate them with Cleveland. I affiliate them with Charlotte. So all these names, cool. The Bears, I could see it. I don't really like it. So out of these, the only team that really makes a ton of sense to me would be the Cleveland Spiders or the Cleveland Blues. Mainly because in 1887 through 1899, the Blues and the Spiders were the names of the Cleveland pretty much professional sports team, I guess. The Blues were the AA team, and they had, I wouldn't say they were decent. They were very bad. And then the Spiders came in of the National League in 1889. And the Spiders were horrible. They made the playoffs one time, and they lost in the World Series in 1892. And that was their only trip to the playoffs in history. Because in 1901, they changed their name to the Cleveland Indians, and the rest is history. So let's go through the history of the Blues and the Spiders. So, starting off with the Blues in AA, in 1887, they played 133 games. They went 39-92 with 2 ties, and they finished 54 games back. Let's see, they have in 1888, the Blues played 135 games. They went 50-82 with 3 ties. They finished 40.5 games back. Changed their name, or now the professional team comes in. It is the Spiders in 1889. In 136 games, 61-72, 3 ties. They finished 25.5 games back. In 1890. In 136 games, they went 44-82. They finished 43.5 games back. They were 7th place out of 8 teams. In 91, in 141 games, they went 65-74-2. They were 5th out of 8 teams. They finished 22.5 games back. Their best season on record came in 1892. On 153 games, they went 93-56 with 4 ties. They were 2nd out of 12. They finished 8.5 games back of first place. They lost the World Series 5-0-1, so I guess they still played 6 games, even though, I'm going to click on this just to see what happened. The Boston Bean Eaters over the Spiders 5-0-1. So it looks like they played every single game, no matter what. And whoever won the most out of 6, I guess, won the series. That doesn't make any sense to me. But again, it was the 1800s, so it shouldn't make sense to me. They lost the World Series, then back to, missing the playoffs. So 1893, they went 73-55-1, finished in 3rd place, 12.5 games back at a first, missed the playoffs, or should I say just missed the World Series, because I guess the playoffs was just the World Series at a time. 1894, they finished 68-61-1. They finished 21.5 games out. Let's see, they got, in 1895, they went 84-46-2, 2nd place out of 12 teams, and did not make the playoffs, so I don't know what happened there. That doesn't make any sense to me. They were 3 games back of first place. In 86, they went 80-48-7, 2nd out of 12, 9.5 games back, still didn't make the playoffs, which doesn't make sense. Whatever. 1897, they went 69-62-1, 5th out of 12th, or finished in 5th place, 23.5 games back at a first. Let's see, they went 81, 68, and 7. Finished 5th and 21 games back, and then the worst season on record. They went 20, 134 with 0 losses. They finished last place in 84 games out of first place. Average attendance, 6,000 people, when just 2 years prior, their attendance was 115,000 per game. My goodness. So really, the Spiders, they've had decent success, I guess. Nothing too crazy. I mean, they did go to a World Series. They got swept out of it, but they went. It's not bad. The Cleveland Blues had a career win-loss percentage of .338. The Cleveland Spiders had a win-loss record of .491. Nothing too bad. There's one famous player that played for the Cleveland Spiders. He is the most famous pitcher. He has an award named after him. It is Cy Young. Cy Young played for the Cleveland Spiders for a while, which is why another reason why I think they'll bring it back. I mean, everybody's familiar with Cy Young's numbers. In 22 years, he had 511 wins, 315 losses. He started 815 games. He completed 749 of them. He pitched a total of 7,356 innings, which is unimaginable nowadays. He had multiple seasons of pitching over 400 innings in a season. I mean, we're lucky to see 200 out of him. But once again, that was back in the older days. His strikeouts weren't even like that crazy, if you really think about it. He had 210 strikeouts. That was his career high, but he pitched 320 innings that year. Let's see, the most innings he pitched in a season was 453 innings pitched, and he only struck out 163, and he walked 118. Cy Young overrated? Question mark? No, I'm kidding. But so I think that's the main reason why I think that the Spiders are going to come back, because they had Cy Young there. He pitched for the Spiders. There's history there. They made it to the World Series. He won the Triple Crown. He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, what more can you really say? I think that is the number one thing, especially for me when it comes to picking a team, is do you have history with the team? Is it a brand new team where you can just kind of splurge and kind of pick whatever name you want? Or is this just what you're going to go with? Is there history with it? That's why when I think the Portland is going to get an expansion baseball team, I always think like, man, you really should go with the Portland Mavericks. Just go off what you have history with. Bring it back. It'll bring old fans back. It'll bring people who've the older people who've lived in the city for so long. It just shows that you pay attention and you really care about the city, I feel like. And, the Spiders, and if you think about it this way, what team is named after the Spiders? You got the University of Richmond. That's really it. And if you think of things that you're supposed to be afraid of, like, who is not afraid of spiders? Like, if you get a really poisonous spider on you and it catches you off guard, you're gonna freak out immediately. There's the intimidation factor right there. Like, you have the Dodgers, who are in LA, and they're named for, they were named for dodging, like, the public transportation, like people, trains on the subways. It was those, or dodging, the buses or whatever when you're crossing a street in Brooklyn. I forget what the actual origin of it was, but it was something along those lines. That's not intimidating. Are Angels intimidating? Padres, are those guys intimidating? What's intimidating about an Athletic? I thought sports teams were supposed to be named after, intimidation factors. And, I really feel like there really is nothing more intimidating than a spider. Well, spiders I got bit by a brown recluse once, and it kind of melted my skin a little bit, which really was annoying. But so whenever I see a spider, I normally don't get scared. I get scared a little bit, but then I get like violently angry, and I have to get rid of it somehow, unless it's a daddy long leg. Then I keep it normally in the corner of my room so it'll eat all the other spiders and all the other bugs that I don't want to deal with. Anyways, off on a random tangent. I will be right back, everybody. I'm going to be taking my final break, and we'll be right back to discuss the weirdest trades in MLB history.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
All right, people, we are going to end on a lighter note. So I found an article based on the 10 weirdest trades in MLB history. So I decided let's go through those, and we'll, kind of discuss those just on a lighter note because, it's the holiday season. We deserve to laugh. So number 10, Mike Sisco for nothing. So this happened around spring training of 2013. At the time, Sisco was a 36th round draft pick in 2008 out of the University of South Carolina and wasn't really going anywhere in the Phillies system. He had some solid numbers as a reliever in Double and Triple A the previous year. The Angels needed some organizational help, and the Phillies let them have Sisco just as a gesture. They were like, yeah, take him. And you'll hear about a guy. You'll hear about guys getting dealt for a dollar amount just so something could be entered in the transaction system, but no compensation was insane. He never made the big leagues. He put up a 3.99 ERA in Double A in his lone year with the Angels. I guess that's better than nothing, but that's not much. Speaking of the Cleveland Spiders, so the Cleveland Spiders needed an arm. Their owner, Frank Robinson, decided to take a chance on a guy named Denton Young, who had put a solid season with the Canton Nadias, which is a type of horse, I guess. So Cy Young got traded for a suit, a $250 or $300 suit from the Cantons, from Canton's head coach. The greatest pitcher of all time got traded for a suit. I guess that's something. I can't even imagine that. Getting traded for, he won 500. I can go on a tangent for this forever. Let's go to number 8. Number 8. Len Dondero got traded for donuts. I guess. Almost, they say. He almost got traded for donuts, which I don't... What? Okay, so let's go down this article. Dondero was an infielder for San Antonio in the Texas League in 1930 when Dallas owners George and Julius Sheps also owned a bakery. offered San Antonio owner Homer Hammonds, sweet name, need more homers in life, a dozen donuts from Dondero Hammond's bit. Wow. The owners from the two teams wound up sharing donuts, and the deal was disallowed. Aw, dang. So, Len Dondero was almost traded over donuts. That's insane. Holy smokes. Number 7, Joe Martina got traded for oysters. So Martina pitched just one season with the Washington Senators in 1924. His name was lost in history because of the 1921 swap, which Dallas sent him to New Orleans for 2 barrels of oysters because of that deal, Martina was forever known as Oyster Joe. Now, let's sit back and think really quick. Oysters from New Orleans. I would take that deal too. Like, let's be real. If a guy's name after that was Oyster Joe, and obviously he wasn't one of the best pitchers ever because I've never heard of this guy's name before. I've never heard of Joe Martina. So, oddly enough, I think the guy who got the oysters won the trade. Is that just me? Well, his wife must have won the deal too, but that's beside the point. I like that deal. I think that's a damn good deal. That is a damn good deal. Heck yeah. Keith Comstock, number 6, got traded for $100 and a bag of baseballs. Crazy. A step beyond the previous trade because left-handed Comstock actually had to deliver oh my god, he had to deliver the baseballs himself. Comstock had been toiling away in the minors for quite a while. When in the spring of 1983, the Tigers showed interest in him, Detroit offered $100, and when that didn't work, the Tigers sweetened the deal by throwing in baseballs. Wow, and Comstock ended up making the majors in 1984 and is now known not so much for being traded for a bag of baseballs. Oh my god, he had to pose with the baseballs. So he posed with the baseballs and the $100 bill after giving them to the Athletics front office as he got traded in 1983. My god, you would never see this in any other sport ever in life. The money for the copy machine for Kyle Korver was probably the weirdest you'll see nowadays, but that was a lot of money, and it was just money. Like, they just sent cash over, and then they just happened to spend the money for a copy machine. But still, like, you're not going to see $100 and a bag of basketballs go to another NBA team for a second rounder. Like, what the heck? Number 5, Kerry Lichtenberg for bats and balls. So, undrafted out of college, Lichtenberg landed with the Minneapolis Loons of the Independent Prairie League, pitching for $650 a month in 1996. He was one class away from graduating from the University of Minnesota. Brother Boats, Guy-Yamago, Gophers, way to go, baby. With an engineering degree and likely leaving baseball behind, but the Braves took an interest, urging the Loons manager Greg Olson. The Braves signed Lichtenberg, and assistant general manager Dean Taylor offered to compensate Olson for the fine. Olson was practical enough to ask what the club really needed: 12 dozen baseballs and 2 dozen bats. Wow. 12 dozen baseball and 2 dozen bats. See, that's a lot better than $100 and a bag of baseballs. And it was a deal. It was a pretty good deal for the Braves because he played for 5 seasons and made 254 appearances. Good job, Kerry Lichtenberg. Row the boats, guy. Go Gophers. Way to go, baby. Number 4, Johnny Jones for a live turkey. So Jones never made it to the big leagues, but his name lives on in infamy as the player that Joe Engel, quote-unquote, the Barnum of the Bushes, allegedly traded for a turkey. He was a light-hitting shortstop for the Chattanooga Lookouts, and he had drawn the ear of local press in the 1930s. Engel sent him to the Charlotte Hornets of the the Hornets, once again, Charlotte, you always think of them, of the Piedmont League in exchange for a 25-pound turkey that Engel declared was having a better year. Oh my God, the bird was cooked up at the Southern Baseball Writers Association dinner. Man, oh my God. He got traded for a live turkey, and that's such a slight that not only he got traded for a turkey, but the owner said that the turkey was having a better year than the player. Oh man, that is such a burn. Number 3, we got Tris Speaker. The Boston Americans signed Speaker out of the Texas League in 1907, but he hit just 158 in 7 games with Boston. When the organization was rather uninterested with him at that point, Speaker had to pay his own way to the team's Little Rock, Arkansas training camp in 1908. 1908, not 2008. And at the end of spring training, the Americans, who changed their name to the Red Sox, gave his contract to Little Rock Southern Association team payment as use for the field. So the only stipulation was that if Speaker developed, Boston had the right to repurchase him for $500. Well, he did develop and become a future Hall of Famer, and basically Tris Speaker was traded from Boston to Little Rock for rent. Wow. Traded for rent. Absolutely insane that a future Hall of Famer was traded for rent. That's even worse than a suit. Because a suit you can wear for years, like rent's just a month. Jeez Louise. We still got 2 more. Another former University of Minnesota alum, Dave Winfield, was traded for dinner. So, the 1994 players' strike wiped out the end of the season, as we're all well aware of. The strike began in mid-August, but the season was not canceled. That's a weird-looking A. Canceled until mid-November. Until that happened, teams could still operate as if play would continue, and the Indians was still holding out hope for a postseason run. They swung a trade for Winfield before the now defunct waiver trade deadline of August 31st. Cleveland was supposed to get a player to be named from Minnesota, but because of the strike, it never happened. To settle things, Indians executives took Twins executives out for a nice dinner. If the steak was anywhere near as good as Winfield, it must have been a pretty good meal. Good jab there. So yeah, he was traded for dinner, a steak dinner. And Dave Winfield, also a Hall of Famer. Number 1, this is definitely the weirdest. Really, really weird. Lefty Grove was traded for a fence. Grove pitched in 6 games for the Martinsburg Mountaineers of the Blue Ridge League of 1920. He said to the Baltimore Orioles of the International League in June of that season for the sum of $3,500, the cost to replace Martinsburg's outfield fence, which had been leveled via a storm. Good gracious. As we're all well aware of, the Orioles had Grove until selling him to the Philadelphia A's in 1925 for $100,000, or $600 more than the Yankees paid for Babe Ruth. So $100,600. He went on to win 300 games and 9 ERA titles. I wonder how that fence held up. Martinsburg Mountaineers, y'all just happened to blow it. So those are the 10 weirdest trades in MLB history. All right, everybody, that is going to be our show. I will be back on Friday with a brand new episode. Enjoy your week, enjoy your families, and to enjoy the holidays. You can follow me on Instagram at EvanWordley23. You can play me tap baseball if you're bored. The nickname is EvanWordley23. And I would like to thank you all for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review, because it really helps us out. And also, if you can please if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all, and have a great week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.